Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Go ahead and get comfortable in that left seat because we're about to take a really deep dive into one of the absolute most critical responsibilities you'll ever have as a pilot in command. We are talking about aircraft weight and balance. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. This is just more math to memorize for the written exam. But trust me, it is so much more than that. Understanding the exact relationship between how heavy your aircraft is, where every single pound is placed, and how your plane reacts in the air, that is literally the ultimate key to safe flying. Whether you're topping off the fuel tanks, throwing some heavy bags in the back, or just having a passenger swap seats, you need to know exactly how your aircraft is going to respond. So let's jump right into this explainer and build up that essential knowledge.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with balance fundamentals, move into center of gravity effects, cover some essential weight terminology, look at the very real performance impacts, and finally, we'll walk through exactly how to calculate weight and balance. Section 1. Aircraft Balance Fundamentals. Let's get right into building that solid foundation.
To really master aircraft balance, you've got to understand the core concept, the center of gravity, or CG. Imagine taking your airplane and hanging it from the hangar ceiling using just one single piece of string. That one perfect balance point, where the plane doesn't tip forward, doesn't tip backward, and doesn't lean side to side, that is your center of gravity. Remember, your aircraft actually moves across three-dimensional axes: longitudinal, lateral, and vertical. Well, all three of those axes intersect perfectly right at this exact balance point. For all our math and physics, it's where we consider the entire physical weight of the aircraft to be concentrated.
Now, to actually find that CG, we need a starting line. We call this the reference datum. It's basically just an imaginary vertical plane established by the manufacturer, and we measure literally everything from it. For instance, on a typical Cessna 172, that datum is the front face of the lower firewall. On something like a Piper Arrow, it might be the tip of the propeller spinner. Once we establish that 0 point, we measure the horizontal distance backward to any item on the plane. And that distance, we call that the arm.
So manufacturers test these planes relentlessly to figure out the safe balance limits, giving us a forward limit and an aft limit. The space between them is your CG range. This creates a highly specific, allowed window where your aircraft can actually fly safely, and honestly, it might shock you how small this window is. On a standard 4-seat Cessna, that safe window between the forward and aft limits is sometimes only about 12 inches wide, literally just one single foot of space. That tiny, unforgiving margin is exactly why precision in how you load your plane is absolutely crucial.
To make all this measuring a bit easier, manufacturers divide the airplane up using stations. You can think of stations kind of like house addresses on a street. They tell us exactly where a passenger, a seat, or a piece of luggage is sitting relative to that datum line we just talked about. So, if an item is located at station positive 50, it just means it has an arm of 50 inches aft or behind the datum.
If you visualize a real-world cabin layout, you'll see how these stations progress as you move backward through the plane. The pilot and front passenger seats might be centered right around station 37. The rear passengers are sitting further back at, say, station 73. And your baggage areas? Those sit way back at stations 95 or even 123.
Alright, so here's where it all comes together. We combine the physical weight of an item and its location to find something called the moment. Remember playing on a seesaw when you were a kid? The further back you sat from the middle pivot point, the more leverage you had, right? It's the exact same principle in your airplane. If you toss a heavy flight bag way back into baggage area 2, the actual weight of the bag hasn't changed. But because it has a really long arm, it creates a much higher moment. It applies a much greater force on the aircraft's balance. To find it, you simply multiply the weight times the arm, which gives you your moment in inch-pounds.
Section 2. Center of Gravity Effects. Now that we know the terminology, let's explore the why. Why does moving outside that tiny 12-inch window completely change how your plane flies? Well, let's contrast the two extremes. A forward CG means your nose is heavy. To keep that heavy nose from dropping, the tail has to constantly push down harder. This extra downward force artificially increases the overall weight the wings have to support. Because of that fake extra weight, you need a higher angle of attack, which unfortunately gives you a higher stall speed and a slower cruise speed due to the extra drag. But there is a silver lining. It gives you fantastic stability. Like a heavy dart, it's really hard to knock off course. Now, an aft CG is the exact opposite. It requires less tail-down force. You'll actually fly faster and stall at a lower speed. Sounds great, right? Wrong. It makes the airplane inherently unstable. If you stall with an extreme aft CG, recovery can become literally impossible. The center of gravity is just too far back to let the heavy nose naturally drop and break the stall.
And keep in mind, excess baggage placed incorrectly creates longitudinal unbalance, dropping your tail and pushing you toward that dangerous aft limit we just talked about. But we also have to think side to side. Imagine flying with your left fuel tank completely full and your right tank totally empty. That creates a lateral unbalance. That wing heaviness requires you to hold constant aileron correction the entire flight, which increases drag and is incredibly fatiguing.
Section 3. Essential weight terminology. Let's make sure we're speaking the exact same language when we read our aircraft manuals.
You're going to see a lot of different weight terms on your data sheets, and not all weights are created equal. First up, standard empty weight. That's the bare-bones airframe, plus unusable fuel and full operating fluids like oil. Basic empty weight takes that and adds your specific plane's optional equipment, like if you installed an upgraded glass panel. Now, when you subtract that basic empty weight from your absolute maximum allowable gross weight, you get your useful load. You also need to know zero fuel weight, which is exactly what it sounds like, the loaded plane without usable fuel. Then there's max ramp weight, which is what you're allowed to weigh while taxiing, and the ultra-critical max takeoff weight. That is the absolute hard limit before you start your takeoff roll. Finally, I really want you to pay attention to useful load versus payload. Useful load includes everything you put in the plane: pilot, passengers, baggage, and usable fuel. Payload is strictly what pays the bills, just the occupants, cargo, and baggage. Knowing what your plane can lift versus what actually pays is a massive deal, especially if you want to fly commercially.
Section 4. Weight's impact on performance. Let's look at the cascading consequences of getting this wrong. So, what actually happens when we push those weight limits? It isn't just a number on a piece of paper. It triggers a really dangerous chain reaction. A heavy airplane needs way more thrust just to get moving, which means you're going to eat up a lot more runway on your ground roll. Once you finally get in the air, your climb rate drops significantly. Your maximum altitude is capped lower, and you're going to burn a lot more fuel just trying to stay aloft. So the big takeaway here is that being overweight actively robs you of your safety margins. It keeps you on the runway longer, forces you to fly dangerously close to your critical angle of attack, stresses out your landing gear, and guarantees a much longer landing roll. It's just bad news all around.
All right, Section 5, calculating weight and balance. Time to roll up our sleeves and get into the how.
Okay, so let's apply the theory. You've got your weights, you know your arms, and you understand the limits. This formula right here is your absolute best friend when you find yourself just slightly out of balance. It's the weight shifting proportion formula. It basically states that the weight being shifted, divided by the total weight of the aircraft, is equal to the change in CG divided by the distance the weight is shifted. So if you need to know exactly how moving your heaviest passenger from the back seat to the front seat will affect your overall CG, this is the exact mathematical tool you use to find out.
Let's walk through a real-world example so you can see it in action. Say our total weight is 7,800 pounds, but our calculated CG is sitting at 81.5 inches. That is exactly 1 inch past our aft limit of 80.5. We are currently unsafe to fly. By plugging our numbers into the formula, we set weight to be shifted over our total 7,800 equal to a required 1.0-inch CG shift over a 120-inch distance forward. If you cross-multiply and do the algebra, it demonstrates perfectly that physically moving just 65 pounds of cargo 120 inches forward pulls the aircraft right back to a safe 80.5-inch aft limit.
Sometimes, though, you can't just shift things around. You actually have to kick some weight off the plane. Let's see the math for weight removal. If we decide to take 100 pounds completely out of the aft compartment at station 150, our new total weight drops to 6,000 pounds. The distance between that removed weight and our old CG is 70 inches. When you run the math, you'll notice how shedding that 100 pounds from the back safely shifts our overall CG 1.2 inches forward. That gives us a brand new, much safer CG of 78.8 inches.
And what about the opposite scenario? Let's say a passenger shows up right before the flight, totally unannounced, with an extra super heavy suitcase. If you add 140 pounds of baggage to station 150, you put that added weight over the new, heavier total weight of 7,000 pounds. Multiply that by the 70-inch distance, and this calculation proves you've just shifted your overall CG 1.4 inches backwards. Before you even think about starting that engine, you absolutely must verify that this new 81.4-inch CG is still sitting safely inside your approved envelope.
At the end of the day, weight and balance isn't a suggestion, it is the physical law governing your aircraft. The math you've learned in this explainer is the only thing keeping you safely inside the flight envelope. So, as you head out to the ramp for your very next flight, I want you to ask yourself, what hidden imbalances might be waiting in your cargo hold right now? And are you truly prepared to catch them before gravity does? Thanks for joining me today, everyone. Study hard and stay safe up there.